Well now, hello my dear. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. It's time to leave the noise of the day behind. Settle into your bed, pull the blanket up, and rest your head. Grandpa is right here with you, with a gentle tale to guide you into the quiet of the night. You don't need to do anything at all. Just listen, softly, slowly, and let your eyes grow heavy. Tonight's story is just for you. So let's take a deep breath and let the dreaming begin. The Whispering Coast. The late afternoon sun cast long, gentle shadows across the sleepy village of Oakhaven. Dust motes danced in the golden light, filtering through the ancient oak trees that gave the village its name. A sense of profound peace hung in the air, broken only by the occasional chirping of crickets and the distant murmur of the sea. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine yourself in Oakhaven. Feel the warmth of the setting sun on your skin, the gentle breeze ruffling your hair. Smell the earthy scent of damp soil and the faint, salty tang of the ocean. Let your breath slow and deepen. Elara, a young woman with eyes the color of sea glass and hair like spun moonlight, stood at the edge of the village, a small woven pack resting comfortably on her shoulders. She wasn't leaving Oakhaven forever, but embarking on a journey, a pilgrimage of sorts, along the Whispering Coast. For generations, the people of Oakhaven had revered the Whispering Coast, a stretch of shoreline known for its unusual geological formations and its calming, almost mystical atmosphere. It was said that the wind, as it whistled through the sculpted rock formations, carried whispers of ancient wisdom and offered solace to troubled hearts. Elara had always felt a deep connection to the coast. As a child, she would spend hours exploring its hidden coves and tide pools, listening to the rhythmic crash of the waves and the cries of the seagulls. Now, feeling the weight of a quiet unease she couldn't quite name, she sought the coast's guidance. She glanced back at the village, at the familiar thatched roofs and smoking chimneys. A wave of bittersweet emotion washed over her. Oakhaven was her home, a place of comfort and love, but she knew she needed something more, a deeper understanding of herself and her place in the world. Taking a deep breath, Elara turned and began to walk, her bare feet sinking slightly into the soft sand of the path that led away from the village. The path was well worn, a testament to the many others who had sought solace on the Whispering Coast. The air was still and quiet. The only sound was the gentle crunch of sand beneath her feet and the faint rustling of leaves in the nearby trees. Elara walked slowly, deliberately, allowing herself to absorb the peace of the surroundings. In her pack, she carried only the essentials: a woolen blanket, a small water skin, a handful of dried fruit and nuts, a simple wooden flute, and a worn, leather-bound journal. She didn't need much. The journey was more about what she would find within herself than what she would find along the way. As she walked, Elara focused on her breath. Inhale, exhale. She felt the tension begin to drain from her shoulders, the worries that had been swirling in her mind slowly dissipating. The rhythm of her breath mirrored the rhythm of the sea, a constant calming presence. The path gradually descended toward the coast, leading Elara through a grove of silver birch trees. The sunlight filtering through the leaves created a dappled pattern on the ground, casting dancing shadows that seemed to beckon her forward. She paused for a moment, resting her hand on the smooth, cool bark of birch trees. She felt a sense of connection to the ancient trees, a feeling of being grounded and supported. They had stood here for centuries, silently witnessing the passage of time, and they offered her a sense of perspective. Continuing her journey, Elara emerged from the grove and found herself standing on the edge of a cliff, overlooking the vast expanse of the ocean. The sight took her breath away. The water was a deep, shimmering blue, stretching out to the horizon, where it met the pale sky. The air was filled with the invigorating scent of salt and seaweed, and the sound of the waves crashing against the rocks below was a soothing balm to her soul. Elara closed her eyes and took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the fresh, clean air. This was it, the start of her journey. She felt a sense of excitement mingled with a touch of trepidation, but beneath it all, there was a deep sense of peace, a knowing that she was exactly where she needed to be. She opened her eyes and looked out at the ocean, the endless expanse of water that stretched before her. She knew that the whispering coast held the answers she sought, and she was ready to listen. Part 2, the first cove. The descent to the beach was steep, but manageable. Elara carefully picked her way down the rocky path, her bare feet finding purchase on the rough stones. She moved with a quiet confidence, her movements fluid and graceful. As she reached the bottom of the cliff, she stepped onto a small, secluded cove. The sand was soft and white, and the water was crystal clear. Towering cliffs rose on either side, providing shelter from the wind and creating a sense of intimacy and seclusion. This was the first of many coves that dotted the Whispering Coast, each with its own unique character and charm. Elara had visited this cove many times as a child, and it held a special place in her heart. She walked to the edge of the water and dipped her toes in the cool, refreshing sea. A small wave washed over her feet, sending a shiver of delight through her body. She laughed softly, feeling the weight of her worries begin to lift. She decided to make this cove her campsite for the night. She found a sheltered spot beneath a rocky overhang, protected from the elements and offering a good view of the ocean. First, she gathered some driftwood that had been washed ashore. She carefully arranged the wood, creating a small fire pit. Then, using a flint and steel she carried in her pack, she patiently coaxed a flame into life. The fire crackled merrily, casting a warm, inviting glow on the surrounding rocks. Elara felt a sense of contentment as she watched the flames dance and flicker. The fire was a symbol of warmth, security, and hope. Next, she spread out her woolen blanket on the soft sand, creating a comfortable place to sit and relax. She took out her water skin and took a long, refreshing drink. The water tasted clean and pure, like liquid sunlight. She then took out a handful of dried fruit and nuts and ate them slowly, savoring each bite. The simple meal was nourishing and satisfying, and it gave her the energy she needed to continue her journey. As the sun began to set, the sky transformed into a canvas of vibrant colors. Hues of orange, pink, and purple painted the clouds, creating a breathtaking spectacle. Elara sat in silence, mesmerized by the beauty of the sunset. The sounds of the ocean grew louder as the tide began to rise. The waves crashed against the rocks with a rhythmic roar, a constant reminder of the power and majesty of nature. Elara closed her eyes and listened to the sounds of the ocean. She felt a deep connection to the sea, a feeling of being part of something larger than herself. The ocean was a source of both comfort and inspiration. As darkness fell, Alara took out her wooden flute. She closed her eyes and began to play, her fingers dancing effortlessly over the whole. The music was simple and melodic, a soothing lullaby that filled the cove with a sense of peace and tranquility. The sound of the flute mingled with the sound of the ocean, creating a harmonious symphony that resonated deep within her soul. She played for a long time until her fingers grew tired and her eyelids began to droop. Finally, she stopped playing and gently placed the flute back in her pack. She wrapped herself in a woolen blanket and lay down on the soft sand, gazing up at the stars. The night sky was clear and bright, and the stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across a velvet cloth. Alara felt a sense of awe and wonder as she gazed up at the vastness of the universe. She thought about the people she loved, about her family and friends back in Oak Haven. She sent them her love and wished them well. She knew that they were thinking of her, too. As she drifted off to sleep, she whispered a prayer of gratitude for the beauty and peace that surrounded her. She was grateful for the opportunity to embark on this journey, and she was confident that she would find the answers she sought. The sound of the ocean lulled her to sleep, and she dreamt of crystal clear waters, white sandy beaches, and the whispering wind. Part 3, Whispers on the Wind. Alara awoke with the first light of dawn. The air was crisp and cool, and the sky was a pale pearly gray. The ocean was calm and still, reflecting the soft light of the morning sky. She sat up and stretched, feeling the stiffness in her muscles. She took a deep breath of the fresh sea air, feeling invigorated and refreshed. She rose and walked to the edge of the water, splashing her face with the cool sea. The salt water cleansed her skin and awakened her senses. After a quick breakfast of dried fruit and nuts, Alara packed up her belongings and prepared to continue her journey. She felt a sense of anticipation as she looked ahead to the day's adventures. She climbed back up the rocky path to the top of the cliff and then followed the trail that wound along the edge of the Whispering Cove. The path was narrow and uneven, but Alara navigated it with ease, her bare feet finding purchase on the rough terrain. As she walked, she listened to the sounds of the coast. The wind whistled through the rock formations, creating a symphony of eerie and beautiful sounds. It was this constant, ethereal music that gave the coast its name. Alara tried to discern the whispers in the wind, to understand the messages they carried. She knew that the whispers held secrets, wisdom, and guidance for those who were willing to listen. She closed her eyes and focused her attention on the sound of the wind. She allowed her mind to become still and quiet, so that she could better hear the subtle nuances of the whispers. At first, she heard only the sound of the wind itself, the whistling and sighing and moaning that echoed through the rocks. But as she listened more intently, she began to hear something else, a faint, almost imperceptible murmur beneath the surface of the wind. It was as if the wind was speaking in a language she didn't understand, a language of ancient symbols and hidden meaning. She strained to decipher the words, but they remained elusive and enigmatic. She walked for several hours, listening to the whispers of the wind. She passed by towering sea stacks, sculpted by the relentless forces of nature. She saw hidden coves and secluded beaches, each with its own unique beauty and charm. As the day wore on, the wind grew stronger. The whispers became more insistent, more urgent. Alara felt a sense of unease, as if the wind was trying to warn her of something. She stopped and looked around, trying to determine the source of her anxiety. She saw nothing out of the ordinary. The ocean was calm, the sky was clear, and the coast was as beautiful as ever. But still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She felt a sense of impending danger, a feeling that she needed to be careful. She continued to walk, but she moved more cautiously now, her senses heightened and alert. She scanned the horizon for any signs of trouble, but she saw nothing. Suddenly, she heard a loud crash. She jumped and looked around, trying to locate the source of the noise. Then she saw it. A large wave had crashed against the rocks below, sending a shower of spray high into the air. The wave was much larger than any she had seen before. She realized what the wind had been trying to warn her about. A storm was coming. The waves began to grow larger and more frequent. The sky darkened, and the wind howled with increasing ferocity. Alara knew that she needed to find shelter, and she needed to find it quickly. She scanned the coastline for any signs of a cave or a sheltered cove. She saw nothing. The coast was exposed and unforgiving, offering no protection from the impending storm. She began to run, hoping to outpace the storm, but the wind was against her, slowing her progress and making it difficult to see. The first raindrops began to fall, large and heavy. They stung her skin and blurred her vision. She stumbled and fell, scraping her knees and hands on the rough rocks. She got to her feet and continued to run, driven by the fear of being caught in the storm. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs ached. Finally, she saw it, a small cave hidden behind a cluster of jagged rocks. It was the only shelter in sight. She scrambled towards the cave, her heart pounding in her chest. She reached the entrance and collapsed inside, gasping for breath. The cave was small and damp, but it offered protection from the wind and rain. Alara huddled in the back of the cave, shivering with cold and fear. The storm raged outside, the wind howling like a banshee, and the rain lashing against the rocks. Alara closed her eyes and prayed for the storm to pass. She knew that she was vulnerable and alone, but she also knew that she was strong and resilient. She had faced challenges before, and she had always found a way to overcome them. She would survive this storm just as she had survived everything else that life had thrown her way. Part 4. The Cave of Reflections. The storm raged for what felt like an eternity. Alara huddled deeper into the cave, listening to the deafening roar of the wind and the relentless pounding of the waves. Fear gnawed at her edges, but she fought to remain calm, focusing on her breath and reminding herself that she was safe, at least for now. As the hours passed and the storm showed no sign of abating, Alara's mind began to wander. The darkness of the cave and the relentless noise created a sense of unreality, blurring the lines between the present and the past. Memories, both joyful and painful, surfaced in her mind, demanding her attention. She remembered her childhood in Oak Haven, playing with her friends on the beach, building sand castles that were washed away by the tide. She remembered her grandmother, a wise and gentle woman who had taught her the ways of the forest and the secrets of the sea. She remembered the first time she had seen the Whispering Coast, the awe and wonder she had felt as she gazed upon its rugged beauty. But she also remembered the difficult times, the loss of her parents to a sudden illness, the struggles she had faced in learning to care for herself, the feelings of loneliness and isolation that had sometimes overwhelmed her. She realized that her journey to the Whispering Coast was not just about seeking guidance from the wind. It was also about confronting her own past, about acknowledging the pain and the joy that had shaped her into the person she was today. As she delved deeper into her memories, she began to notice something strange about the cave. The walls seemed to shimmer and shift, as if they were made of liquid light. The shadows danced and twisted, creating grotesque and fantastical shapes. She realized that the cave was acting as a mirror, reflecting her own thoughts and emotions back at her. The cave was showing her the parts of herself that she had tried to hide, the fears and insecurities that she had kept buried deep within her heart. She saw her fear of failure, her doubt in her own abilities, her longing for connection and belonging. She saw her anger at the injustice of the world, her sadness at the suffering she had witnessed, her frustration at her own limitations. The experience was both terrifying and liberating. It was painful to confront these hidden aspects of herself, but it was also empowering to acknowledge them and to accept them as part of who she was. She realized that she could not truly move forward until she had made peace with her past, until she had forgiven herself for her mistakes and learned from her experiences. As she continued to reflect on her life, she began to feel a sense of compassion for herself. She realized that she had been too hard on herself, that she had expected too much of herself. She recognized that she was only human, that she was capable of making mistakes, and that it was okay to feel vulnerable and afraid. She learned to embrace her imperfections and to accept herself unconditionally, flaws and all. As she began to practice self-compassion, the cave began to transform. The shimmering walls became clearer. The dancing shadows became less menacing. The cave seemed to become lighter and brighter, filled with a sense of peace and serenity. She realized that the cave was not just a mirror, it was also a sanctuary, a place where she could heal and grow. It was a place where she could connect with her true self, with the part of her that was wise, compassionate, and strong. She spent the rest of the storm in the cave, reflecting on her life and practicing self-compassion. She emerged from the experience feeling changed, renewed, and empowered. She had faced her demons and emerged victorious. Part 5. The Sunken Garden. When Elara finally emerged from the cave, the storm had passed. The sun shone brightly in the clear blue sky, and the ocean sparkled like 1,000 diamonds. The air was clean and fresh, washed clean by the rain. She took a deep breath, feeling the invigorating energy of the new day. She felt lighter, freer, as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She walked back to the path and continued her journey along the Whispering Coast. The landscape looked different now, transformed by the storm. The rocks and cliffs seemed to gleam with a newfound vibrancy, and the vegetation was lush and green. As she walked, she noticed something unusual. The path seemed to be leading her away from the coast, inland towards a hidden valley she had never seen before. Curiosity piqued. She decided to follow the path and see where it would lead. The path wound its way through a dense forest, the trees growing taller and thicker with each step. The air was filled with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers. After walking for what seemed like hours, Elara emerged from the forest into a hidden valley. She gasped in amazement at the sight before her. The valley was a lush, verdant paradise, filled with exotic plants and flowers she had never seen before. A crystal-clear stream flowed through the center of the valley, cascading over moss-covered rocks. But the most remarkable thing about the valley was the sunken garden. It was a large, circular garden that had been carved into the earth, creating a sheltered oasis of beauty and tranquility. The garden was filled with rare and beautiful flowers, arranged in intricate patterns and designs. There were roses of every color imaginable, lilies with delicate petals, and orchids with exotic shapes and patterns. In the center of the garden was a small pond filled with crystal clear water. Water lilies floated on the surface of the pond, their white and pink blossoms reflecting the sunlight. Elara felt drawn to the garden as if by an invisible force. She walked towards it, her heart filled with awe and wonder. As she entered the garden, she noticed a small stone bench tucked away beneath a weeping willow tree. She sat down on the bench, feeling a sense of peace and tranquility wash over her. She closed her eyes and listened to the sounds of the garden. She heard the gentle murmur of the stream, the buzzing of bees, and the chirping of birds. The sounds were soothing and harmonious, creating a sense of serenity. After a while, she opened her eyes and began to explore the garden. She wandered through the flower beds, admiring the beauty and diversity of the plants. She touched the soft petals of the roses, inhaled the fragrant scent of the lilies, and marveled at the intricate patterns of the orchids. As she explored the garden, she noticed a small hidden path that led away from the main area. Curiosity piqued once again. She decided to follow the path and see where it would lead. The path wound its way through a dense thicket of trees and bushes, becoming narrower and more difficult to navigate with each step. Elara had to push her way through the vegetation, her clothes becoming torn and scratched. Just as she was about to give up, the path opened up into a small clearing. In the center of the clearing was a small stone cottage, its walls covered in ivy and its roof thatched with straw. The cottage looked old and weathered, but it exuded a sense of warmth and charm. A wisp of smoke drifted from the chimney, suggesting that someone was inside. Elara hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to approach the cottage, but her curiosity got the better of her, and she decided to knock on the door. She walked up to the cottage and knocked gently on the wooden door. After a moment, the door creaked open and a woman appeared. The woman was old and wrinkled, with long silver hair and kind blue eyes. She wore a simple homespun dress and a warm, welcoming smile. "Welcome, my dear," she said in a soft, gentle voice. "I have been expecting you." Part 6, The Gardener's Wisdom. Elara was taken aback. "Expecting me? But I didn't know anyone lived here." The woman smiled knowingly. "The garden calls to those who need it, child. Come in, come in. You must be tired and hungry." Elara stepped inside the cottage. It was small and cozy, filled with the aroma of herbs and wood smoke. A fire crackled merrily in the hearth, casting a warm glow in the room. Shelves lined the walls, overflowing with books, jars of dried herbs, and curious objects. "My name is Willow," the woman said, gesturing to a chair near the fire. "Please, sit. Tell me about your journey." Elara gratefully sat down, feeling the warmth of the fire seep into her bones. She told Willow about Oak Haven, her unease, her decision to walk the Whispering Coast, and the storm that had forced her to take shelter in the cave. She spoke of the reflection she had seen within the cave and the self-compassion she had begun to cultivate. Willow listened intently, her eyes filled with empathy. When Elara finished, she nodded slowly. The Whispering Coast works in mysterious ways, child. It shows us what we need to see, guides us to where we need to be. But what does it all mean? Elara asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. Why did it lead me here, to this hidden garden? Willow smiled. The garden is a place of healing and growth. It reflects the potential that lies within us all. You have come here to learn, to nurture your own inner garden. Willow explained that the garden was a metaphor for the human soul. Just like a garden, the soul needs tending, nurturing, and care. It needs to be weeded of negative thoughts and emotions, fertilized with positive experiences, and watered with love and compassion. The flowers in this garden represent the different qualities and virtues that reside within you, Willow said, gesturing to the vibrant blooms outside the window. Each flower has its own unique beauty and purpose. Your task is to cultivate these qualities within yourself, to allow them to blossom and flourish. Over the next few days, Elara stayed with Willow, learning the secrets of the garden. Willow taught her about the different flowers, their properties, and their symbolic meanings. She showed her how to weed, prune, and fertilize the plains. She shared her wisdom about life, love, and the interconnectedness of all things. Elara learned that roses represented love and passion, lilies represented purity and innocence, and orchids represented beauty and perfection. She learned that by tending to these flowers, she could cultivate these qualities within herself. Willow also taught her about the importance of letting go of what no longer served her. She showed her how to compost the dead leaves and flowers, transforming them into rich soil that could nourish new growth. Just like the garden, you must learn to let go of the past, Willow said. You must release the pain, the anger, and the resentment that hold you back. Forgive yourself and others and move forward with an open heart. Elara spent hours working in the garden, tending to the flowers, weeding the beds, and watering the plants. As she worked, she felt a sense of peace and fulfillment she had never experienced before. She realized that she had found her purpose, her calling. She learned to appreciate the beauty of nature, the miracle of life, and the interconnectedness of all things. She learned to be patient, to be compassionate, and to be grateful for the simple things in life. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Willow turned to Elara. You have learned much in your time here, child. You have nurtured your inner garden and allowed your own qualities to blossom. But my journey isn't over, is it? Elara asked. I still feel like there's something more I need to learn. Willow smiled. The Whispering Coast has one final lesson for you. You must return to Oak Haven and share your wisdom with others. You must help them to nurture their own inner gardens. Part 7. The Labyrinth of Echoes. The next morning, Elara bid farewell to Willow and left the sunken garden. She felt a pang of sadness at leaving her newfound friend, but also a sense of excitement at the prospect of returning to Oak Haven and sharing her wisdom with others. As she walked back towards the coast, she noticed that the landscape had changed once again. The forest seemed less dense, the trees more vibrant, and the air filled with a sense of anticipation. It was as if the Whispering Coast was preparing her for the final stage of her journey. When she reached the coast, she discovered that the path had led her to a part of the shoreline she had never seen before. Towering cliffs rose on either side, creating a narrow passage that led towards a dark, mysterious labyrinth. The labyrinth was made up of twisting, turning passages carved into the rock by the relentless forces of the ocean. The walls were smooth and slick, echoing with the sound of the waves breaking against the shore. Elara hesitated at the entrance to the labyrinth. She felt a sense of foreboding, a feeling that this was a dangerous and unpredictable place. But she knew that she had to enter, that this was the final test she had to face. Taking a deep breath, she stepped into the labyrinth. The darkness closed in around her. The sound of the echoes filled her ears. She felt disoriented and confused, unsure of which way to turn. She walked slowly and cautiously, feeling her way along the smooth, slick walls. The passages twisted and turned, leading her in circles and making it impossible to tell which way she had come. She began to hear voices, faint whispers that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The voices were fragmented and distorted, but she recognized them as her own. She heard echoes of her doubts, her fears, and her insecurities. She heard echoes of her past mistakes and regrets. She heard echoes of the negative thoughts and emotions that she had tried to suppress. The voices grew louder and more insistent, bombarding her with negativity and making her question her own worth. She felt overwhelmed and defeated, tempted to give up and turn back. But then she remembered the lessons she had learned in the sunken garden. She remembered the importance